Jenna's crew. Welcome to this live stream where I'm trying to figure out where to stand because I am out in the mud, out in nature, trying to enjoy some beauty out here in the woods. It definitely makes me want to do that whole like thing from the Blair Witch Project, but I won't do that. So I am in Valentine's Day gear, you guys. It is almost Valentine's Day. Do not forget to get your significant other something. If you don't have a significant other, then go ahead and get yourself something because it is a day to recognize love in all its forms towards everyone, but especially towards yourself. So this is my new pink cardigan and I'm super excited about it. And I was really excited about it because for my birthday we're doing a Barbie and Ken themed party. So I was like, okay, this is definitely on theme with being Barbie. And this is definitely on theme with what I want for my birthday. My birthday is February 10th. I'll be turning 36 years old. And I really have no problem saying that because most people think I'm younger than 36 anyways. But I'm still in that place where I still get the yes ma'am, no ma'am, but it doesn't bother me at all. I'm from Texas, and that's just a way for people to be respectful, and a lot of people forget that. So oftentimes what will happen with these live streams is I'll just kind of go down a stream of consciousness, down a stream of whatever's occurring in my mind at the moment. And I went and I exercised and that felt really good. I love to cycle. I just pretend I'm on a Peloton and that I have Lance Armstrong leading the class, and every time it goes pretty well. I don't have the EPO, but that's okay. Dreams, you know, Make-A-Wish Foundation, that'll happen one day. So I have a really good time exercising and doing all the things that I talk about on this channel. Hi! Hi, Duya. How are you, hon? Thank you for the stickers. You know, I always think it's important to practice what I preach, especially as a coach. And when I'm preaching about, or not preaching, but talking more about being out in nature, I literally mean taking nature in. Now, that's not always easy for everybody to do. Not everybody has access to a fantastic greenage that's very close to their home. But what I will say is that it is incredibly important to be out in nature, to be out enjoying what you're doing, to go ahead and use your voice for something that is positive and that is going to help others if you so want to. If not, if you just need to be inspired, then that's what I'm here for. Here to kind of talk more about being authentic, being the most authentic version of yourself, which is something that I'm constantly always talking about. It's really hard to be yourself when you don't know yourself. Aw, you're welcome. If I only remembered the Spanish for that. Okay. Okay, I'm reconnected. Let's see if it's going to work or if it's stuck on pause. Okay, it's working. So I guess because I'm a little bit away from the Wi-Fi, the live stream might be a little wonky, but hopefully it won't be too much. So taking the time to knowing yourself. Now, a lot of people don't do this. A lot of people get really uncomfortable spending time with themselves, being in the quiet, getting to know themselves. There's a lot of people that often forget that, you know, we come from a place of a lot more quiet. We didn't always have all this technology. We didn't always have all this stuff that we use and stuff that I use every day for work, so I'm not knocking it. But I'm just saying that what we were able to do is get away from the silence, and therefore getting us away from knowing ourselves a little bit more. I don't know if you've ever met that person who wants to always fill the silence with as many words as possible. I don't know if you've ever run into somebody like that. Someone who just can't stand that what they might think is an awkward silence. I used to have that problem majorly. I used to think that every silence, every pause was awkward in some form or fashion. It's not. Every pause and silence is an opportunity for you to revisit how you want to respond to something, to not go with your initial reaction, because oftentimes our initial reaction might be a little harsh if we're not living in our gift. And of course, when I'm talking about that, I'm talking about about the 64 gene keys, the gene keys, where for every city there is a shadow and there is a gift. So that shadow is what's going to take you to the city through using the gift. And that's what I talk about a lot in my live streams regarding the gene keys specifically. And I really enjoy talking about it because, like I said, it's really changed my life. The other thing that really changed my life is streamlining who I'm listening to when I am listening to podcasts. I've been very comedy heavy, very comedy focused. I haven't really given time to my girl Alexis, unfortunately, which I need to because I know she's been coming out with some killer content. But basically, elevating yourself and elevating others is helping them to be the most authentic version of themselves. So how do we get to know ourselves more? Well, we spend time contemplating. We spend time in silence. We spend time feeling comfortable with ourselves, feeling okay with who we are and where we're at. We allow ourselves to walk through the shadow, to sometimes even do some shadow journaling of identifying the patterns that we had when we were children, right? Because according to the gene keys, the cycle is every 7 years. So years 0 to 7, 7 to 14, and 14 to 21. Those were major years and major time periods that really had a lot to do with the patterns that you have today. So oftentimes getting in touch with that inner child, as cheesy as that may sound, is something that is absolutely required in order to get further in life and to get past your own demons. We'll call them demons. They're not really demons though, it's just a shadow. It's just the lowest frequency form of another term in gene keys, or in the gene keys, excuse me. But I've really found that that is really effective. Oftentimes what I've seen is that when there's duality, when there's too much duality, when there's only two choices, when there's only a black or white thinking, it kind of drives me nuts, as I think it will drive most people nuts. There's always going to be another option. So what I love about the gene keys is how it sets up its channels and how it sets up its circuits. And that's also talking about human design. It's really interesting how once you get your body graph chart, and you can get that at humandesign.com. That's where I got mine. I also got the readout, and boy, was it on point with me. I mean, things that just I normally wouldn't think, like how can you know this just from my birthday, my hometown, and my first name, or my full name. It just is something that's so radical and so extreme, and a lot of people are like, oh, well, that is linked to astrology, so that's not for me, that's the devil. I hear that so oftentimes with people that they won't really want to open up their minds a little bit, just because this sounds like something that's a little bit different from whatever they've done. But these books have actually been okay. Thank you, Juan. I appreciate that. I'm not exactly sure, but I think you're saying that you don't understand because yo no hablo español. Yo lo siento, pero I only know a little bit of Spanish, un poco. So my apologies. But definitely having the opportunity to get to know your shadows, to get to know your what the gift is, to get to your city. Because getting to the city is so important, right? We want to get into a point where we can be in the highest expression of ourselves, the fullest expression of ourselves, the most authentic version of ourselves. Now, we see that there's 3 paths when it comes to this, to these gifts, to each of these gene keys, these 64 gene keys, and they're all affected by lines. They're all affected by lines 1 through 6. So you're getting a whole bunch of different options and things available to you. That could be, oh, there's deer poop. That's nice. Well, one of the nice things about nature is understanding that there's nature going on at all times. So if I walk over and find some deer poop, I guess that's just what happens. But it's really nice to really have the opportunity to get to know yourself, to get to celebrate yourself. And oftentimes we forget about this. We think, oh, a birthday's coming up. This is our only time to celebrate ourselves. This is our only time to give ourselves props for making it another year. And the truth is that's just not true. We have this opportunity every single day in order to find a way to celebrate ourselves, in order to find a way to be our happiest version of ourselves if we choose to. If we choose to celebrate ourselves every day, what is that doing? That's driving us forward. That's putting us first. And it's just like when you're in an airplane, they talk about who you're going to give the oxygen to first. You're going to give it to yourself first, so that way you can help others around you. And that's the great thing about the Gene Keys in Human Design. That's the great thing about coaching with me. When you coach with me, you really get the full experience of targeted coaching, targeted things for your particular situations, for your particular, whatever's going on and whatever needs to be worked on. Thank you so much. I am, let's see. Oh, Lame Tuba 1. That's actually a hilarious name. Love it. And I'm going to say that I agree. So I actually have ADD, or ADHD, I should say. And I just find that I think a little bit better because I'm a kinesthetic learner. So when I'm moving around, yes, we are talking about psychology, we're talking about body language, we're talking about why would someone choose to wear heels outside in rocks? I think that points to I'm a masochist. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, so in function is motion. So we're also talking about physiology and not just psychology. We're talking about the both of them. And it's really interesting because in the 6 lines, we're talking about yin, yang, yin, yin, yang, yang. I think those are the 3 that there are. There was 4, but I don't remember how I got to 4 the last time. It was when I was reading the book. And Richard Rudd explains all this incredibly well. And as much as I love the Gene Keys and I love human design, I know people have kind of been like, okay, but what's your take on it? Why are you so involved in this? Well, because I'm still currently studying it. I am not in any way an expert. I am just a fan. But I have almost all of the books, and I have found it to be an incredible resource to my clients and to myself, especially when you're trying to find the purpose of your life, the purpose of your different spheres. And all this talk is very much something that you will become more aware of as you watch more of the Gene Keys videos, as you go ahead and get your body graph chart on ahumandesign.com. I have a membership to Genetic Matrix. I believe it's still working, so I can do that for you as well. If you want to send me that information, you can do it at cultofwellnessco@gmail.com or at jennashafir@gmail.com. Jenna Shafir will usually get to me a little bit faster because that's the one I check more. I'm not super quick on checking emails all the time, but it's just because I have a busy life. So back to being our most authentic selves. So that comes down to the way that we dress, the way that we behave, the way that we move, the way that we are, the way that we feel. Now, understanding that all of our feelings are temporary, right? Everything that we're experiencing in this moment, this happening right now, this is temporary, this is not forever, this is not something that's going to last forever. Now, on a technicality, is this being recorded and could it be viewed later on? Absolutely, it could. But you're not going to be in the same exact moment as we are right now. For you guys watching the live stream, or women, for anyone watching the live stream currently, right, we're in this moment, we're in this connection. And when you're outside of that connection and you're watching it as a playback, that's kind of your way to go back into the past, to go back into a place where, hey, there was someone that was saying something kind of interesting this one time, or maybe you just want to hear me babble. Either way, it's a stream of consciousness, so it just keeps on going. It's not about filling awkward silences because there are none. I used to be so focused on efficiency. Efficiency was a really big thing in my life growing up because of my father being the businessman that he is. He really instilled efficiency into our lives, efficiency with our mind, efficiency with the way that we set our time, the way that we set our schedules. So what I learned from that, though, was that we were always in a rush because our time is very important. And again, it's one of the 3 things that we have to spend. We have money we can spend, we have our time that we can spend, and we have our energy. The 2 most important of the 2, obviously, are our time and our energy. Money's a floating thing. Money happens, money comes, money goes. But what you do have is your time and your energy when you choose to recognize it. And that's the biggest thing, is choosing to recognize when things are important and when things matter. This doesn't happen to everyone, it doesn't happen all the time, and it doesn't happen on a frequent basis either. A lot of times we remain closed up because we're uncomfortable, because we want certain things to stop, because we want certain ways of being to be tolerated and to be okay. But oftentimes what will happen is one person will kind of ruin it for everybody else, and it kind of goes from there. Now you can allow this person to ruin it for you, or you can continue to trail on, and you can continue to not allow yourself to be objectified in a certain way, or to not have a way of just being an object, right? That's the whole point of this community, is to remember that women are not just objects. They can be, but so can men. So let's try to not see each other as that. All right, what is LameTube saying? I talk mostly about how memory works and how to have a conversation about everything so that you are not stuck having conversations where you can't be talking about anything else. Yeah, very much like free association. I went down a huge mind, a white rabbit type mind F, and really took that to the next level and took it to, okay, what can I associate things with because of my memory? What I'm dealing with is short-term and long-term memory loss. That's because of a procedure that I had done a couple of years ago on 2 different occasions. Well, 2 different occasions, but it's a long story. And in order for me to remember I was going is for me to literally see it in my mind as I'm stacking memories or I'm stacking points all together. And the reason that I do that is because it's easier for me to be able to come back to the point that I was talking about, or to come to one of the other points that I was talking about, and then just to kind of have a circle around that with a little arrow pointing to that stack and be like, okay, that's a stack of memories. I got that. That's chunk that's saved for something else, or I have that right here, back here, so I can remember where I need to go with my language and what I'm talking about. So hopefully that's helpful. That's how my memory works. I'm a very visual and I'm a kinesthetic learner, so I'm always moving. I'm always learning different ways to be when it comes to body language. The most, of course, is open and receptive, and that's only from a place of where you're comfortable from. So even with standing further away and being it harder for me to see myself, maybe that's something that makes me more comfortable. Maybe it doesn't make it easy for you to see, but it makes me more comfortable. So this can very much be a study on what my experiment with Gene Keys is. It's finding out, what am I most proficient at? How can I prove it? And not is it how can I prove it to other people, but how can I prove it to myself? How can I face certain fears that maybe have plagued me since I was a child? And how do I overcome those? Well, I'll tell you. Exposure therapy. If I'm so afraid of falling all the time, if I'm so afraid of failure, then I wouldn't be out here in my heels walking around on crazy rocks and in mud. But I am, because I no longer fear failure. What I do fear is looking silly and looking ridiculous. Oh, is that a truth? No, not really. Because I've decided to look ridiculous and to be full of fear might be an interesting way of being. It might create a lot of anxiety for somebody, and to understand and to realize that fear is such a big pain point in anxiety. We make people think that they have to be open 100% of the time when we're just facing a camera, when we're not moving around, not being ourselves. When we're standing still, when we're having to hold ourselves together, when we're having to clench, what message are we sending? Yes, that we can communicate in a better way, that yes, we can communicate clearly and authentically, but what else are we communicating? An idea of perfection. So this ability to walk around and move is something that I'm also grateful for, because there's people out there that don't have the opportunity to move around, that don't have the opportunity to walk. And that's not a guilt trip. It's just one of those things where it's like, that occurs to me sometimes, it really does. Let's see, I have a concept of how it works. It's academic, if not scientific. It also works. I live a life I don't go, so I'm not detached from the core experiences people have to survive. Very well put. I am out in nature, exploring nature and enjoying it. Also talking about the ways that we connect, also talking about memory. Oh, and there is an airplane. I don't know if you can hear it on the microphone, but there is an airplane overhead. I feel like one of those. So, oftentimes, when it comes to memory, when it comes to things like that, when it comes to talking about things that are maybe more difficult for people, it's easy to open up when you put yourself in a space of security, and you can do that for yourself. So, for me, perhaps if I'm talking about something that's a little bit more difficult, or I'm talking about something that, oh, I don't know, maybe I'm not sure how I want it to be taken, I take a few steps back and I walk away. Why? I'm setting up my boundary, I'm setting up my space, and anyone can do this. Anyone can set up their boundary, anyone can set up their space, even if it's from a virtual world. Sometimes people just need to walk around and have their own moment to gather their thoughts and to think. The stream of consciousness is not always necessarily a straight stream. There's ebbs and flows in it. Exactly, lame tube. I'm going to repeat this out because this is super important. You need to see things from other perspectives. When you can do that, you are able to go further. I'm going to repeat that one more time because it's that good. You need to see things from other perspectives. When you can do that, you are able to go further. So what this brings me to is this idea of, at least for myself, I spend quite a while living in that victim mentality, and that's a mentality that a lot of people are living in right now. Now, when we're able to come from a place of being a little bit more objective with ourselves, we're able to see that we do play a part in everything that happens to us to a certain point. We're not going to say 100%. We're going to say that this is more of like an 80-20 type of thing, because there's some things that happen when you're a certain age and you can't consent, or there's certain situations that occur that really weren't your fault. Not that we're trying to place the blame game here, but I'm just saying, when I was in a point of always being a victim, I was always incredibly closed off. I was very hard to take seriously because I would always talk about the same things, and I would take myself way too seriously. I would take myself so seriously, my ego was the size of a house because I was stuck in that victim mentality. I was stuck in blaming everybody else for the things that had occurred to me. Now, when I spent time as an adult several years ago, starting to go through this process of seeing myself not as a victim and not as a survivor either, but just as someone that had an experience or experiences. When you try to see yourself as someone that simply had experiences in their life, that they're not better or lesser than anybody else's, when you're able to take away that comparative analysis that you always want to do with everybody else, when you're able just to hone in and focus in on yourself, what happens? You get much more clarity. You get a lot more clarity on who you are, the way that you work, the way that you think. It's really a way to kind of map yourself out a bit. But when you get out of that victim mentality, how are you feeling? You're feeling a lot more grateful. Gratitude is so much more easier to experience when you're out of that state of victimhood, because when you're in that state of victimhood, anything and everything can hurt you. Anything and everything is here to hurt you sometimes when you're in that victimhood mentality. When you're out of that victim mentality, you start to see things for the opportunities that they can be. You start to see things from a different point of view. So being able to see things from different perspectives is very much something that you can do when you're trying to elevate yourself, when you're trying to level up, when you're trying to get to that next sphere. Maybe when you're working in your shadow and you're trying to get to the gift, or you're trying to get to the city. It just depends on what your goal is, on what you're trying to do, on how you choose to word it. And what I like about the Gene Keys in Human Design is that it gives us a template. It gives us a vocabulary to use in order to also talk about elevation and talk about all the things that I have already been talking about. That's why I'm so excited and happy to be able to bring to you readings from Human Design and Gene Keys, because of just the exponential change that has occurred in my life. And it really took me a long time to want to synthesize this information. And that was because I really took it seriously, the time that it takes to respond to something. There are times when I may become more aloof, kind of more to myself, a little more introspective, and so it makes me really not want to do lives and not do videos all the time, and sometimes I just want to take time for myself. And that's really good and important to do, but I also know that it's my gift to help others. It's my gift to not impart my wisdom, but to impart the wisdom of others and just to be the vessel for that. And also to understand that wellness is something that can be attained by anybody. This is not something that's limited to people. This is very much inclusive. Wellness can be, I could just come up with one for you. But at the completion of coaching with me, you don't get a certificate that says, okay, you completed your coaching, you're done. No, oftentimes people need my help for anywhere between 9 and 12 weeks. That's generally what it takes. From there, I still have people that I still see just on a less regular basis, just for check-ins, just for checkups, just to kind of see where they are on their journey and to guide them toward any problem situations that might be occurring in the moment. And these are times when it really feels like my clients have transcended into friends, where it's more about, you know, catching up, sharing the good things in their life, and we're not so much in the negative aspect anymore. And this tends to happen when you have yourself a little cheerleader. When you have a group of cheerleaders, actually, it's even better. And that's why it's so important to get your family and your friends on board with you when you're making a change. That doesn't mean that you're going to them for approval. It's just when you're serious about something, when you're like 100% sure about something, you're serious about something, you feel it intuitively, that's when it's going to be, okay, I am in a safe spot to share this with people if I so choose. Now, you may not want to really talk about changing or making a change in your life. Maybe in the past you've attempted to make changes and these changes didn't go so well, or these changes weren't permanent. That's okay, because not everything is permanent. Everything is temporary in a way, with the exception of maybe tattoos, but even those can be temporary because you can just remove them. And that's the great thing about ideas. With ideas, especially with stuff with the gene keys, with human design, with pretty much anything, you can get to a position and a point in your mind where you can allow yourself to see things from a different realm, a total and complete different realm. Now, does this mean you've transformed, you've transcended, you've changed into something else? Not exactly. Not exactly, right? What it means is that you can hold separate thoughts, you can hold separate ideas. Aw, thank you so much, LameTube. You take care. And so this is something that happens quite often, right? And I forgot what I was saying. I got lost for a second. But that happens sometimes on these streams of consciousness. I just kind of lose my place and then I just keep going. But I am happy to be out of that victimhood mentality. That victimhood mentality was very difficult for me and for my family and for my loved ones to endure. To have to see someone in a place of blame all the time, in a place of not really being able to experience joy and laughter and all the wonderful things that life has to offer. Yes, I understand, LameTube. You can always email me at cultofwellnessco@gmail.com or at jennashafir@gmail.com. That's JENNASHAFFIR@gmail.com. Free to do that too. But to talk about change and to talk about, being a different person, there's so oftentimes a rebirth, right? There's a rebirth in everything. Every change that we're wanting to make or every change we're not wanting to make. Knowing ourselves enough that, hey, this is who we are, we're open to change, but that doesn't mean that we're open to changing everything at the same time. I think that's a healthy way to go about it. I think it's healthier to do things one at a time. It's easier to change things one at a time than it is to do a whole bunch of things at once. However, we do have our type A people, and our type A people are oftentimes people that can accomplish a whole bunch of goals at once. But why I try not to do that with my type A clients is because I want them to learn to focus on one thing at a time. I want them to have one thing as a goal. I want them to have one thing as something they're improving on. And then for some, it's okay, let's have a plethora of goals so that way you can feel as though like, hey, I can accomplish all these things if I choose to at this certain point, Or maybe I can learn, hey, I'm not ready to accomplish all these things at once, but I can go back to doing things once at a time, and it's no big deal. It just means it might take a little bit longer. And that's the big thing about patience. Oftentimes we don't have patience, and that kind of goes back to what I was talking about with efficiency. Efficiency can oftentimes be misconstrued as a lack of patience. I know that in the way that I would see things and how my lens has really shifted, I was able to see things from a place of victimhood. Again, that's, I guess, the word I'm just going to keep on using, but thinking that, oh, well, I feel very sensitive because someone's being efficient around me. That must mean that I'm not as efficient. This must mean I'm a loser. This must mean blah, 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 blah. Would I take it that far? No. But there are a lot of people that do. They'll take nudges from people that are meant to be friendly, that are meant to be from a place of caring. They'll take that and they'll overly sensitize, like they'll get overly sensitive to it. And why is that? Does that necessarily mean it's a trigger? No, it means that it's a response. This victimhood status sometimes is just a response. It's just a way of behavior. It's just a way of choosing or not choosing, like depending on your intent. A lot of people see the victimhood status as a way to you too, LameTube, thank you, and thank you so much for your information. That's awesome. I'm so glad that you're that educated. Congratulations. So a lot of times from this victim state mentality, what's going on is we're seeing ourselves as inferior. We're seeing all these comments, all these things that are trying to be maybe helpful notions toward us. We're taking them the wrong way because of this idea of, oh, everyone wants to hurt me. Oh, everyone wants to blame me for something. What are they blaming you for? I have no idea. For everyone, it's different. For everyone, they have different things that they feel like they have that imposter syndrome about, right? So that can be talking to people. That can be being in that state of fake it till you make it. A lot of times fake it till you make it is something that's very difficult for people to get into, and oftentimes this is something that people have a very hard time with. Faking it until you make it. Really what it is setting yourself up for manifesting. That's really what it is. And enough of my clients have seen, and a lot of people in my own life have seen, what the power of manifestation has been able to do for me. Now, is this meaning that there's something that you're going to talk about incessantly, never shut up about, and someone's going to shut you up by making this thing happen? No, but that occurs. No, manifesting is something that I believe is incredibly, it can be incredibly private, but it can also be something that you make public, just depending on how open you are to sharing your feelings and emotions with people out there that may not always be people that you think are going to respond to what you're saying in the way that you think they are, right? That's a big part of changing the way that we're thinking. Getting feedback from other people is actually incredibly helpful. It's also incredibly helpful to be able to see things from another person's perspective. Not necessarily having to walk a mile in their shoes, but allowing for room that, hey, there's an opportunity for growth and for space because I can learn from this person, whoever this person may be. I can learn not only more about myself, but I can learn more about what makes them tick. So that way all of our future encounters are something that are going to be more positive or something that are going to continue to be great as they are. If it's a person that's toxic, a person that's not worth your time or your energy, or let's face it, your money, then probably don't spend as much time with them. Try to find ways out of it. That doesn't mean making excuses. That means being very upfront and being very honest. If they ask you questions, it doesn't mean you have to be rude or impolite. You don't have to literally tell this person, oh, by the way, I think you're toxic, so I'm going to take you out of my life. No. Being the bigger person, if they ask about it at least. Because there's no point in bringing harm when you don't need to. But if a person asks why you're not spending more time with them, if you have identified them as a toxic person, you can simply state that you just have things on your calendar that have been more pressing at the moment. You can reiterate to this person, I appreciate how important you were in my life at a certain time. It's just right now I'm really busy. I have a lot going on. Even if you don't so much have a lot going on, you have a reason for taking this person out of your life for a reason, especially if they've done some type of major harm to you. But what you want to do is come at it from a place of forgiveness. That's really what I've learned a lot from, is coming from a place of forgiveness, coming from a place of acceptance, coming from a place of, okay, I cannot say that I know how this person feels, but what I can say is that I can empathize with them because I've taken the time to listen to what they have to say. I've taken the time to listen to their viewpoint. I've taken the time to listen to what they want to inform me about. Now, I can respond, I can pause, I can react, I can do a whole bunch of different things. But when you're coming from a response, usually you're going to want to come from a place of pausing, a place of really trying to understand what it is the person just talked about. And with me, I'm one of those people where I talk about so many different things that it's often hard to kind of wrap your brain around it all at once, and that's okay. But the whole point is to respond knowingly. And what does that mean? That means respond with knowing yourself in your entirety as best you can. Allowing for whatever emotions are occurring, whatever feelings you're having, allowing yourself to feel that way, allowing yourself to experience those emotions. However, when you notice that you're going to be reactionary, when it's going to cause more harm than good to a person, that's when you're going to want to stop. That's when you're going to want to kind of take a step back. Or if you find as though it's going to cause more damage to you to respond to someone in that moment, you can simply walk away. Or you can just say, hey, it's really hard for me to process this in this moment. Maybe we can talk about it later. Right? Setting up those boundaries, making sure that we have those boundaries in place with people that might test our patience. Because eventually we want to get to a place where not where we're hanging out with all these toxic people all the time, but we want to get to a place where we no longer really see people as toxic because we don't allow them to affect us the way that they used to. And that does take time and that does take patience. But forgiveness is such a big and important role in being entirely well and being at least as entirely well as you can be. Forgiveness and gratitude. And gratitude can come from everything. Gratitude can come from something small. Gratitude can come from something big. But just being grateful. Every day is an opportunity to be grateful for something because you woke up. Now, I don't know how you woke up and I don't know, what your current situation is. But just know that it's very easy to slip into a negative mentality. And that's okay too. It's okay to be melancholy sometimes. It's okay to feel sad sometimes. But when you can, really trying to elevate your frequency so that way you're feeling better. And so then that way as well, people around you can feel better. Or maybe it's a day for you to rest and recharge. Oftentimes I am not oftentimes, I am a generator in human design. So I'm always about going. But what my work needs to be, and what it does continue to be, is taking that time to rest and to relax and to learn that not everything is going to happen in one day, but that I can share my experience. I can share about how things are going for me. I can share about how things are going for others that I get to help, and just kind of go from there. Having real discussions, real conversations that matter, that are important, that are about being more well, and also about being able to stay wild. Now, you can stay wild in a lot of different ways. Staying wild does not necessarily mean that you can't be conservative and be wild. You can be conservative and be wild, absolutely. You can be wild and be wild. But if you're wild, I also want you to be well. And that's the thing, that the juxtaposition between wildness and wellness, that's something that occurs a lot if you see it from that type of spectrum. But being wild and being well are not polar opposites. They're just different ways of being. And so as long as you can take in your wild side, being in nature, enjoying things, and maintain your wellness side, which is also being in nature, taking in things, allowing yourself just to have a different experience, allowing yourself to be free, allowing yourself really truly to be free. To be free to feel your own emotions, to be free to process things the way that you need to process them in your own way and in your own light. Because for a lot of different people, to process things is very difficult for them in the moment. It's much easier to do it after the fact. And that's why oftentimes hindsight is 2020 is something that's true. So today we kind of went on a meandering thought process of a lot of different things, but I am so grateful to all of you that took the time out of your day to watch. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and or join. It is popping off on the other tiers, and I am so excited to bring you this new content. And please feel free to reach out to me at cultofwellnessco@gmail.com or Jenna Shaffir, that's JennaShaffir @gmail.com. You can also reach out to me on Instagram. It's Fentafax, FENTAFAXX12. All right, y'all. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Be well, stay wild as well. If this